All right, so we're gonna start working on some fractions today, and this fraction activity doesn't have a ton to do with paper and pencil. We're actually gonna be using more food than anything so that you can start understanding fractions a little bit better. So some supplies that you're gonna need for this activity are like a butter knife, one that's not very sharp. We don't want anybody to cut themselves, so it can be like a play knife from your Play-Doh set, or we're just using a butter knife that's not very sharp. We have a cutting board. We are going to use bologna and some cheese, and we're also going to have a couple measuring cups with water. But really, oh, and I also have some pickles. Honestly, you can use anything. So right now what we were thinking was like cosmic brownies. If you have a little miniature pizza, anything that you can find in your house that would be fun to kind of cut up and work with to make fractions would be just fine. So we're gonna go ahead and pause our video. We want you to pause your video. Go ahead and get that knife that's not very sharp, a cutting board, and maybe one or two, maybe 3 food items in the house that we can work on cutting up and piecing back together to make fractions. All right, hopefully everybody has all of their food items, the cutting board and the knife. So now we have to talk about what is a fraction. And a fraction is just a part of a whole thing. So right now I have this whole stick, but now I have half and I have half. So now I have 2 fractions, okay? I have 1/2 and 1/2 equals a whole stick. Okay, so anything that just is a part of it is a fraction, basically. So if you take a Cocoa Puff or whatever cereal you have and you take a bite out of it, all of a sudden you have a fraction of that Cocoa Puff left. You have a part of it left. Usually it's like a half of it left if you're just taking a bite right out of the middle. Okay, so what we're gonna work on today is some very specific fractions, okay? Mr. Tembor, do you wanna go ahead and go over the fractions we're gonna be talking about today?
All right, we are breaking down fractions such as 1/4, so 1 part of a whole 4. We're going to be getting into 2/4, so this is 2 parts of a whole 4. Getting into 3/4, which is 3 parts of a whole 4.
And then obviously we need to work on the whole number, which is 4 out of 4. Do you have that here?
Somewhere.
He does have it. I know I saw one.
There.
Right here. And then when you have a number such as 4 out of 4, all of a sudden you've got your whole one again. Okay? So anytime you have a number like 4 out of 4,
yep,
or 8 out of 8, that always equals one whole thing. Okay? So we're going to start just by kind of playing around with our food, and then we're going to teach you how to add these fractions together. So we're going to start with a piece of bologna.
1 whole piece of bologna.
Hold on, let's show them the one. One
whole piece of bologna.
All right, let's put that piece of bologna down. That's disgusting.
I like bologna.
Mr. Tembor used to only eat bologna, and he called it circle ham until he was like 17.
Ha! Okay, what should we break this bologna up into? How many parts?
I think that we should start with cutting it into fourths. So whatever you have, I want you to put it down, and I want you to cut it into 4 equal parts.
Equal, just the word I was thinking. All right, I got 2 parts.
All right.
1 and 1. Let's try to make it as equal as possible.
And let's get our camera here.
And there we go.
Okay, so now I'm gonna pull these apart, and now we've got 4 pieces of bologna. Okay, so where's our 4 out of 4?
The one that you, there we go.
All right.
So that is equal to?
So we have 4 out of 4 pieces of bologna, but Mr. Tembor sometimes gets really hungry. So we are going to, if Mr. Tembor is gonna take a piece out, are we gonna add or are we going to subtract?
I'm taking away a piece. Add or subtract it.
Okay, so he's gonna take away a piece because he's hungry. So we're gonna get a subtraction here. Oops, we have to subtract, put minus. Mr. Tembor, put a minus. Minus. And he's going to eat 1/4 of it, okay? So if Mr. Tembor, out of these 4 pieces, he's going to eat 1 out of the 4 pieces. Go ahead, Mr. Tembor, eat it.
So good.
All right.
All right.
So now how many pieces do we have left? We have 3 out of the 4 pieces left. So let's put in equals. And then we've got 3/4 right here.
And there's our equation. Look at that.
And there's our equation. So we had 4 out of 4 pieces of bologna, which equals 1, right? So that 1 minus 1/4 of it equals 3/4 left. So when you're adding and subtracting fractions, you want to keep the same number on the bottom, and we're just going to deal with the top number right now, okay?
We like to call them numerators and denominators.
Super hard words that we don't expect you to remember, but what you do need to know is that the top number is the part out of the whole. All right, now if you have 2 measuring cups, we're going to try to add some of those fractions together. So we have 2 measuring cups, one right here and one right here. Mr. Tembor, I want you to pour whatever you want in there, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4 of a cup, or you can pour a whole cup, whatever you think that you should pour in there.
I'm going to pour a modest 1/4 of a cup.
Okay. So
Kind of hard to see.
it is kind of hard to see, but that 1 out of 4, you can see we have a full cup right at the top. And if we cut it, can you move your finger?
No, I think you're right there.
Okay. But we have the full cup is up here. Okay, so that would be the 4 out of 4. And if we split it into fourths, we'd have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4, all the way to the top. So now I'm going to add some fraction to mine. And I'm going to put 1/2 of a cup in mine. So 1/2 of it is going to be exactly in the middle. Okay. So what is our equation? I'm gonna hold it up.
All right. Right there.
Yes. Now, something that's difficult is the bottom right now, because the bottom numbers are not the same.
We gotta make them the same though.
Yes. So we are going to call that 1/2 2/4. Why would we do that? Well, let's look. Because if we'd had that 1/4 and a 4th and a 4th and a 4th, I filled up 2/4 of the cup. Okay. So why don't you give me the one that says 2/4? Oh, right here. Okay. So now we have 1/4 plus 2/4, but we're not sure what it equals. So let's put this down while we figure that out. Why don't you pour yours in the cup, or and I'll pour mine in.
So 1/4 plus 2/4. Okay.
So now everything that we had, we put together, and we're going to just put it back into
What do we do
one.
when we put things together? We add them together.
We added them. And now we have 3/4. So when we had Mr. Tembor's 1/4, and then Mrs. Gosh added 2/4, now we have 3/4. So let's take a look at that, what that equation is. What are you going to turn up to them?
Right there.
Okay. So Mr. Tembor's 1/4 plus Mrs. Gosh's 2/4 equals 3/4. Now, how much do we have to add to that to get to a whole? So now we've got 3/4 of the entire cup filled, okay? But we want to get to 4/4 because we know 4/4 equals 1 whole. Where's the 4/4, Mr. Tembor?
It is right here.
Okay. We want to get from 3/4 to 4/4. How are we going to do that?
You gonna take away from 3/4?
No.
We gotta do something.
How do we
get from 3 to 4?
Oh, okay. So we need to subtract. We need to do 4/4 minus 3/4.
And that's gonna give us.
Why don't you hold that? 4/4 minus 3/4 Well, let's do that, shall we?
We shall.
Okay. So we're going to do, how are we going to do that? We're going to fill this up 4/4, which equals the whole cup. And we're going to pour 3/4 out of it.
Ooh.
Okay? Get rid of that. I'm going to pour 3/4 out of it.
We're going to see what's left over.
Okay. So we had 4/4. I poured out 3/4. And guess what's left? 1/4. So if I put that 1/4 back in with the 3/4, we're going to get back to 4/4. And what do we know about 4/4? That equals a whole. 1 whole cup. Okay, so we're going to, I want you to go ahead and play with your water for a little bit. If you have 2 measuring cups, it makes it so much easier. If you have a bowl, and you can fill it up to 1/4, put a 1/4 in the other one, put them together, see what that gets you. Put a 1/2 in one, put a 1/2 in another, put them in a bowl, see what that gets you. I want you guys to play around with that just for about 10 minutes and then come back to us on the video, and then we're going to start working on some more fractions with some cheese because we both love cheese. I'm waiting on Mr. Tembor to go to the bathroom. So remember when we said we were going to just talk about 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4, and then a whole today? We
Lied.
Because now we're going to talk about eighths, because we figured out that you guys are probably really, really good at this by now. So our smallest fraction that we're going to talk about today is 1/8. Okay, so we're going to cut this next piece into eighths, and we want you to cut your next food item into eighths. Actually, if you go get another knife, you can cut the pickle and I'll cut the cheese. Isn't that like an idiom or something?
Yes. Something like that.
So, go ahead and cut yours into eighths. I'm going to do my cheese right now.
You want me to cut this pickle into 8 pieces?
Yeah.
Okay.
So far I've got mine into 4ths. So once you have it into 4ths, because usually it starts in 4ths, then the way to get to 8 pieces is obviously to cut each piece in half again, because if you cut 4 pieces in half, you're going to get 8 pieces. Did you not start in half?
Yeah, I did.
No, you didn't.
I did. Just did not go well.
Pickles are not easy to cut as cheese. Okay, I've got mine.
I got something. All right.
Okay, so once you have your food item into 8ths, Mr. Tembor and I are going to write down some equations. We're going to show them to you, and we want you to answer the equations by putting your pieces together by adding or by subtracting. Evelyn, can you turn your video down a little bit? So here are some of the problems we want you to do at home, and we're going to be working on them too. So we have 8/8 minus 6/8. So let's all start by doing that one. Are you going to do yours?
Yes. So I'm starting with 8 parts.
8/8
minus 6/8.
minus 6/8.
So I got all my pieces here.
There we go.
And then subtracting, I'm going to take away 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right. Look at that.
I was left with.
Look what I have left.
I got
2.
2.
I have 2/8 left.
2/8 of a pickle.
Now, we have a little problem because 2/8 isn't as far as we can reduce it.
No.
And yeah. So actually, we're going to have to reduce that fraction a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So let me teach you a little something here. Okay.
Oh, no.
I'm going to put some of my pieces back on here. Okay. If I can figure out how they were before.
That's not it. but good try.
It's really close.
No. Okay, I see.
This is not it.
Nope.
Nope, flip this
It's,
guy
it's pretty
over.
close though.
Yeah, it's getting there. And then this. Okay.
Good.
So here's my lesson for today. If I'm going to teach you one thing, which I hope there's more than one thing that I can teach you in one day. But we said that we had 2/8 left, okay? So these down here were the 2 that were left after I took away 6 pieces, okay? But that's not as far as we can break down that fraction.
We can reduce it even
We
more.
can reduce it because 2 still can go into 8, okay? So what we can see here is that when we cut this apart, we have a whole 1/4 of it here.
Where's 1/4?
This is another 1/4.
There's a 1/4.
Here's another 1/4. And here's another 1/4.
There's 4 equal pieces.
Okay? Now, that means that the 2 I took away must be equal to 1/4 because this is 1/4 of the entire piece of cheese. Because we have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4
It's going to equal
equals 4/4.
4/4.
Right, which is the same thing as saying 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. And we take all of these and make them an 8, and that would equal 8/8. So,
Or 1 whole piece
did
of cheese.
did I shock anybody, or did I just confuse you all more?
I think they kind of know that already.
They do?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You guys know that.
So 2/8 is reduced to 1/4. Let's do the next problem. 4/8 plus 3/8. Mr. Schemborg.
I got 4 pieces of pickle plus another 3 pieces of pickle. And I now have, if I add them all together, you got to combine them, right? And there goes 1 piece of the pickle. Combine them all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Out of?
8. 7/8 of a pickle is what? 4 through?
Nice.
4/8 plus
So how
3/8.
much of the pickle is left?
Is this little guy?
Just that one.
1/8.
Just 1/8 of it.
There we go. All right.
Perfect.
Next one.
All right. We have
Do this one on your own.
7/8 plus 1/8.
And I know you guys can do that. Good luck.
Dun, 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 dun.
And they're solving.
And done.
They're done.
What'd you get? That is right. 8/8. But if you write 8/8, we will mark you wrong.
Yep, we will.
Why is that? Because 8/8 equals 1 whole. When you put them all together,
1 whole
8
pickle.
parts out of 8 parts is 1 piece of something. Or 1 whole.
1 whole something.
1 whole. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Did
I
I
like
confuse
it.
you with 1 piece? 1 whole of something.
All right, nice job, everyone.
All right, nice job, everybody.